in this meeting. And that's where I made my consecration to God, is in that meeting. But I was sitting there on the side, looking at him, looking at the people. There wouldn't be over 60 people present, if that many. And he was leading them away, and they were joyful. You know, country meetings are joyful. And I was sitting there. And suddenly, with my eyes wide open, I didn't see him. I didn't see the people. I saw the world. Now, when you're seeing a vision, it is so natural that you don't know it's a vision. You find it out when you come back to yourself. It is so real until it is more real than life itself. I saw the Japanese in their colorful garments that they love to wear, kimonos. I saw the Mongolians, rough, tough, ragged. It scared you almost. And then I saw the Chinese, all sorts of Chinese, some of them so elegantly dressed. 2 and 3 little things coming out here showing you they didn't have on one undergarment, they had on 3 or 4 undergarments of beautiful silks. And so they were darlings. And then I saw the South Sea Islanders, naked, rough, mean. I saw them from South America and from Africa and India and from Europe. I saw the world. It was exciting. Millions and millions of people. They were on a highway, and they were going, they weren't walking. They were in a little oriental trot. And I was watching them, you know. It was as real as my flesh is right there. I saw them. And God, you know, a vision is a tremendous thing. God picked me up out of my body. I saw my body stay there in church. And I, Lester Sumrall, left my body. And away I went over the top of these people. I could look down, and there they were, pretty. Oh, it was it was a talk about a moving picture show. Hey, that was a beautiful one. And went right over the top of them to the end of the road they were on. God said, that's the road of life. Yeah. At the end of the road was eternity. And I saw the world go to hell. There were the flames. It was like a volcano in action. And it would come up and engulf God only knows, like 100,000 go whoop, and they'd go down into it, screaming, crying, yelling, tearing their hair, scratching their face. There they went. And I'd lost my breath. I said, oh, God. You have to see a scene like that to preach like I preach every day of your life with all your heart to the whole world. No wonder I preached in 100 nations of the world. You couldn't slow me down. I've gone by ox cart. I've gone by wagon. I've gone by riding donkeys. I've gone by camels. I've gone by every conceivable means of transportation to preach the gospel to the whole world. That vision calls that. I'd never been in what you call a missionary meeting in my life. I'd never seen missionaries dressed up in costumes of their countries in my life. I hadn't seen any such thing. This was a new thing, and I was looking at it. But the end of the road was hell. You know, when they got to the end of that road, to the precipice, they would try to back up. They'd say, and the pressure from behind would, and over they'd go into hell. The pressure from behind would catapult them, whip, and they'd go into the air, screaming and crying and yelling. They didn't bother about eternity until they got there. Isn't that amazing? I looked at it. I observed it. I don't know how long. Weeping. And God spoke to me and said, you are to blame for it. Oh, I says, not me. I was born in New Orleans, Louisiana, and I've lived in Mobile, Alabama, and I've lived in Panama City, Florida, and I have never been abroad. Therefore, I am not to blame. And God quoted the Bible for me, and I'd read it and didn't see it. And you know, you can do the same. Read the Bible and not see it. And he said, if the ungodly commits his ungodly deeds, and he dies in his ungodliness, and you don't warn him of his ungodliness, I will cause his blood to be upon your hands. And I suddenly saw blood running through all my fingers. The blood of the nations. You know, God can make a missionary when he wants to. And that's the reason I'm looking at you, speaking to millions of people. For the simple reason, God put it there. I didn't put it there. My father was a machinist. I'm supposed to work with machinery, but I didn't. God made me work with you. And he did it. I didn't do it. He did it. And I saw the blood. And I said, God, what can I do? He said, what the word says. Tell them. Reprove them. Rebuke them. The nations. I said, the nations? The nations, you saw them go to hell. And my word says, if the ungodly dies in his ungodliness, and you don't warn him of his ungodliness, I will demand his blood at your hands. Ooh. I said, God, why don't you tell everybody, not just me? He says, I have. It's in my book. It's in the 3rd chapter of Ezekiel. I didn't know it was in the book. And he says, you're going to be judged by the book. And he said, when you go down to the courts and you tell the judge, oh, I didn't know I was wrong. He pays no attention to that. He says, you better know the laws of the land. And says, you better know the laws of eternity. Oh, neighbor, if you don't read the Bible, you're in trouble. If you don't know your responsibilities to God, you're in trouble. God said it was in the book. And I said, yeah, Lord, what shall I do? And at that moment, I woke. Now, I couldn't tell you whether I was there an hour or an hour and a half or 2 hours. I don't know. But you know, country people are very strange folks. You know what they did? I never had enough courage to ask them if they tried to shake me. I never did. I never talked to anybody about that meeting. I was ashamed of that meeting. You know, after all, I was 19 years old. I was ashamed of it. I don't know whether they thought I went to sleep and they did it as a joke or what. All those people went home